Welcome to Upvoit. In this video, I will walk you through the settings and configurations. To access the settings, click the gear icon in the top right corner. From here, you can configure workflow settings and master data for each Upvoit module. To begin with, let's jump into the company configuration. From here, you can set up information about your business, including basic details, time zone, and currency. Underneath on Settings screen, there is System Configuration, from where you can customize Upvoit according to your business workflow and business settings. Let's begin with General. The first setting is the tax position. Here, you can define whether tax should be applied before or after the discount, and based on selection, quotes, jobs, and invoices, it calculates taxes accordingly. If you click the question mark icon, it shows information about the same, like what it is, how to use it, and tips. Similarly, you can see the same icon in front of all the rest of the settings. The next one is a checkbox that enables you to give access to Upvoit to your customer's contact person. Means your customer's contact person can log into the customer portal, and they can access the data assigned to them, like quotes, jobs, and invoices. Next one is job title generation. Here you can configure the job title. There are two options: input manually and automatically. When you choose to input manually, users need to enter their own job title for each job. When you choose automatically, it means you can define your variables in the text box below using various available variables. After that, the system generates a job title for each job automatically using defined rules. You can use job number, client first, name, client, last name, company name, and PO number. The next one is the scheduling naming. Here you can define what your business says to a schedule, like a job, a work order, a service call, a ticket, or you can define your custom terminology. Accordingly, Upvoit will reflect the schedule terminology in the entire system for your account. That's all about the general configuration. Now let's move to the request configuration. Here we have a magic link for slot/appointment booking. In Upvoit, every business has its unique link that can be used standalone, embedded on a website, or anywhere. Let me show you how this works. When you access that link, it shows a web page with the necessary information. Based on the contact number or email, it can also find or create clients automatically. All the submissions from this page will fall under assessment, and a quote or job can be created based on need. Next, you can define the success message and the error message. Meaning, when a user submits information on the above page successfully, then what message would you like to show them? And if it fails, then what message would you like to show them? That you can set up from here. Let's move to quote configuration, and the first one is notes and terms. You can set up your default notes and terms here, so you don't need to fill them in every quote. Below that, you can define an email template for quotes. From the quote page, user can send an email to the customer. And this is how we configure the content of an email, like the email subject and email body. You can use multiple dynamic variables for the subject and email body. As you can see, that's how you can use dynamic variables that will be replaced with specific quote information. Next one is configurations for the job, and a very important module of an Upvoit. First one is allow tracking. From here, you can enable or disable continuous tracking of technicians using their mobile phone GPS. Location update interval means every 5 minutes it tries to get the geolocation of devices, and tracking alert time means let's stay for 10 minutes. If the system does not receive any geolocation information from the technician, then it prompts the user to enable their GPS or allow tracking. Below that, you can configure job number, like having a prefix, a suffix, and padding from here. Next, checklist for a job. From here, you can enable or disable a checklist feature on a job. If you enable it, then you can choose a checklist while setting up a job for each job, and the technician can see that particular checklist with all the items on a job. You can create or manage multiple checklists from this checklist menu on the configuration panel. Then comes clock-in modes. Here, you can define how you want your technician or team to clock in for jobs. Individual means every technician those are on the job needs to clock in and clock out themselves to log their work logs. In team-based, here it has two options. Any one person can clock in and out for the entire team. Whenever the first person from the team clocks in, that marks clock in for each member of the job automatically. Supervisor/manager based clock in. While you set up a job at that time, you need to define a supervisor for that job. Only that person can clock in and clock out, and the rest of the team members will automatically clock in and out based on the supervisor's entry. This feature helps those business that has less mobile-friendly staff or people who have a hard time operating mobile apps. So it eases for businesses to log hours on their behalf, them using a supervisor. The next configuration allows you to log your expenses and timesheet even before you start your job. By default, you can't log your expenses or hour logs before the job starts, but let's say you need to prepare for the job and want to allow that. Then you can enable it from the highlighted checkbox. Next, let's look at assign technicians per line item. This feature is helpful when you create a job and want to define the parts you'll replace or the services you'll perform. Sometimes, you may have supervisors or subcontractors working on specific parts of the job. In that case, you can assign each line item to the right technician. So if you turn this option on, you'll see an extra setting where you can choose which technician should handle which line item. If you turn it off, then Upvoit won't ask you to assign any items to any technician. Everything stays simple. This setting has multiple uses. For example, if you work with subcontractors and you pay them a fixed amount per task, not based on their hours, this feature becomes really useful. Let's say you charge your customer $100 for a service, but the subcontractor's fixed cost is $60. You can set that amount here, and it will automatically reflect in their payroll. Now let's look at the next feature, two-stage completion. By default, when this setting is off, your technicians can complete a job on the field, and that's it. The job is marked as completed. It will automatically show up in Invoices and in Payroll without any extra steps. This is perfect if you want a fast and simple workflow. But if you turn this feature on, you are adding one more step, a verification stage. Here's how it works. The technician finishes the job on site and marks it as completed. Now, before it goes to billing or payroll, your admin needs to verify it. Once the admin verifies, the job is officially completed in the system. So you can decide whether you want jobs to be completed instantly, or if you want someone from the admin team to double-check first. When you enable this, you'll also see one more option, require finalization before billing/payroll. If this is off, as soon as the technician completes the job, all labor entries and expenses will directly appear in payroll and invoicing, even if the admin hasn't verified the job yet. If this is on, nothing related to payroll or billing will show up until the admin finalizes the job. This ensures all details, hours, expenses, materials are checked before anything goes to payroll or invoices. So overall, this feature helps you control how strict or flexible your job completion process should be. On each job, you can send an email manually to your customer. For that, you can define your template from here using the dynamic variables of the job. And the last feature here is Enable Signature. This option is useful when your team works on-site and you need a customer's signature as proof that the job is completed, or proof that the service or delivery was done properly. If you turn this feature on, you'll be able to set your own consent message. This is the text your customer will see right before they sign. For example, you can write something like, "I confirm that the work done is accurate, and I agree to provide my signature below." Or for deliveries, something like, "I have received my product in good condition without any damage." You can customize this message based on your business needs. Once this is enabled, every time your technician completes a job or a visit, the app will show a pop-up asking for the customer's signature. The signature will then be saved inside the job details as proof. And that's all for the job configuration section. You can adjust these settings based on how your team works in the field. Next, let's look at this invoice setting. If you usually bill your clients based on the hours your team worked on a job, you can control that from here. When this option is on, all the work logs, the hours your technicians recorded, will be added to the invoice automatically. But if you turn this off, then the work logs will not be charged to your client for that specific job. This is useful when you want to charge a fixed amount, or when the job is already covered under a package or contract. So, depending on how you want to bill your client for a particular job, you can simply tick or untick this option. Now, overtime calculations. If you are charging your clients based on the worked hours, and you have different rates for straight hours and overtime hours, then you can configure overtime calculation here. Here we do have 4 different types of calculation settings for overtime calculation. Weekly calculation 40+. In this option, you can set anything above 40 hours per week as overtime hours and charge as overtime to the client. Daily calculation 8+. Anything above 8 hours is considered overtime hours. Shift-based calculation. Based on defined shift timing, anything outside of those hours will be considered overtime. No overtime calculation. No overtime calculation. You can define overtime hours manually. Also, you can define, like compulsory, consider weekends as always overtime from below, 2 options below. Also, you can set up a grace period for overtime calculation. Like more than 5 minutes, it should be considered as overtime. Next, you can set invoice number auto-generation from here by setting prefix, suffix, and padding. Next, we have the option, enable generate invoice before job completes. This setting decides whether you want to create an invoice before a job is fully completed. If you turn this on, the system will allow you to create an invoice at any time, even if the job is still in progress. This is helpful when you collect payments during delivery, or when you want to hand over the invoice to the customer while you're still performing the job. But if you want a stricter process where invoices should only be created after the job is fully completed, then simply keep this option off. So depending on how your operations work. Next is generate bulk invoices. This feature allows you to create multiple invoices at once. So if you provide services on a daily or weekly route, or you handle many jobs for the same customer, you don't need to create invoices one by one. You can generate all of them together in bulk. When you enable this option, the system will unlock an extra feature where you can select the jobs or routes you want to invoice, and then create all the invoices in a single click. You can also print them in bulk if you need physical copies. This is really helpful for businesses that handle high volumes of jobs and want to save time on invoicing. Next, let's look at invoice PDF layouts. Here, we provide 5 different invoice layout styles. You can choose the one that best fits your business. Just click on any layout, and you'll see a preview of how your invoice will look. You can also customize each layout based on your needs. For example, you can choose which fields you want to show, like invoice number, invoice date, line items, discounts, labels, and more. If there's something you don't want to include, you can simply turn it off. If you want to add extra fields or rename something, you can edit that too. Once you save your changes, the system will generate invoices using your chosen layout and settings. So overall, you get full control over how your invoice PDF should look. Below that, if you need a description of work log and expenses automatically using multiple variables of that log, you can define it here. For example, let's say on the invoice PDF you need the technician's name, then the date, and notes. So you can define like editrol, person name, deditrol, work date, editrol, notes. And below that you can set up an invoice email draft format using dynamic variables for sending invoices. Next we have the option Send Invoices to Client Automatically. If you turn this on, the system will automatically send an email with the invoice to your customer as soon as you save or create a new invoice. You don't have to do anything manually. The email goes out instantly. If you turn this off, the system will not send any automatic emails. Instead, you'll see a button on each invoice, and you can send the invoice manually whenever you prefer. So this setting simply lets you choose between auto-sending emails or sending them manually. Also, you can set your default notes and terms for the invoice just below that. Let's move to the next one. That is payroll. Here, you can also define different overtime calculations for payroll. That means you can keep separate overtime calculations for invoice and payroll. It has the same options as an invoice. The next one is to define your payroll period, like weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, or custom. And accordingly, payroll module works to generate automated payroll. Below that, we have default payroll job status to select so we can predefine the status whenever we watch over the payroll. Next, we have the setting, choose which job date is used for payroll. You can set this separately for one-off jobs and recurring jobs. This lets you decide how the payroll date should be calculated based on your workflow. You'll see 3 options here. 1. Job completed date. Here, the payroll date is based on when the job was completed, not when the work happened. So if the technician worked on the 23rd, but the job was completed on the 24th of November, then all the hours will show under the 24th of November in payroll. 2. Job work date. This means the payroll date will be the actual date the technician worked. For example, if the technician worked on the 23rd of November, all the hours logged on that day will appear under the 23rd of November in payroll. 3. Job start date. With this option, all hours will use the job start date for payroll. For example, if the job started on the 23rd of November, and the technician worked on the 23rd, 24th, and 25th, all those hours will still fall under the 23rd of November in payroll. These same 3 options apply to recurring jobs as well, so you can choose exactly how you want the payroll date to be calculated, based on the work date, the job completion date, or the job start date. Below that, you can set up rounding for clock in and clock out. By enabling rounding rules, you can set different rules for clock in and clock out as well, using upward, downward, and nearest setups with intervals. The same thing can also be treated as a penalty if your tech team is late for a job. Next, we have the allowances option. If your payroll process includes allowances, like travel allowance, meal allowance, or any extra payment, you can enable this feature here. When you turn this on, the system will show the allowances module, where you can create and manage different types of allowances. You can assign these allowances to a customer, to a job, or directly to a technician's profile. Once it's set, the system will automatically include those allowances when generating payroll. If you turn this off, then the allowances module and related settings will stay hidden, and allowances won't be used in payroll. So you can enable or disable this feature based on whether your business needs to manage allowances. Next, let's look at Include Break Time. This option is useful if your technicians get paid break time or free meal breaks during their workday. If you turn this on, the system will include break time as part of paid hours in payroll. If you don't offer paid breaks, you can simply keep this off. You'll also see an extra setting here. Apply only if shift is longer than X minutes. This lets you set a minimum working time before break allowance is applied. For example, if you want technicians to work at least 4 hours before they get a paid break, you can set that rule here. In that case, break time will only be added for technicians who work 4 hours or more on that day. This helps you control when break time should be counted in payroll. And that's all for the payroll settings. Now next one is communication tabs. From here you can define your automated notifications for different events to your customers and technicians. Here you can define your email and SMS drafts with dynamic variables for events like job creation, updation, completion, and on the way. If you tick then, and the system will send an email or text with defined draft content. On the way means, on every job technician can see a button called On the Way. By clicking that button, the customer will be notified through email and text that your team is on the way to perform the job. That's all about configurations and settings. Now let's move on to the next part, user management. Here you can see a list of all your users along with their basic information and roles. You can also use filters to shorten the list. For example, filter by role, name, email, or status. From this list, you can activate or deactivate a user, edit their details, send a password reset email, or change their password. To add a new user, simply click on the Add User button. 1. Basic details. On the first tab, you can enter the user's basic information, name, email, phone, and shift timing. If the user is a subcontractor, you can select their subcontractor group here as well. You can also upload their profile picture. 2. System access. The next tab is where you set their roles and permissions. We provide a few pre-configured roles like admin, who has full access automatically, limited worker, worker, dispatcher, manager, and subcontractor. If you want more control, you can choose the custom option. With custom access, you can decide exactly what the user can or cannot do. For example, what scheduling rights they should have, whether they can view or edit time tracking, whether they can add expenses, whether they should see pricing or costing on jobs, or if you want to hide all financial information from them. Every module has its own permissions, and you can fine-tune everything based on the user's role in your company. 3. Payroll and billing. The next tab is for payroll and billing settings. Here you can set straight hourly rate, overtime rate, premium overtime rate, travel per mile rate. You can also choose their pay type, hourly pay, or fixed pay. For fixed pay, you can define whether it's per job, per day, or per week. For example, $100 per job or $700 per week. This tab also includes allowances. If you give your technicians allowances like $10 per job or a daily allowance, you can set it here. If they complete 2 jobs, then 2 allowances will automatically apply to payroll. 4. Notes and attachments. The final tab is for notes and attachments. You can upload any personal or work-related documents for that user, like IDs, certificates, or agreements. You can also add internal notes that only your team can see. Managing existing users. For existing users, you can edit their information, reset their password, send a password setup email, activate or deactivate them, and update their permissions anytime. Everything you need to manage your team, technicians, managers, subcontractors, or dispatchers, can be handled from the user management page. Next is teams. Here you can create a team of technicians or users and use them for scheduling. From this form, you can add, manage, or modify the team. While you are creating a team, by selecting a human icon, you can define a supervisor for the team. Next one is integrations. So with Upvoit, we have available integrations with QuickBooks Online, Stripe for online payments, Company Cam, Square for online payments, Zapier, and Twilio. Next one is job type. You can manage all the job types here, like create, modify, or delete any job type. The user can define a color for each job type, so you can easily identify schedules based on job type on the schedule calendar. Next is services/products. Manage your services/products here. If your QuickBooks is integrated and enabled, then you can directly sync all of your services from here as well. Taxes. From here, you can manage your taxes and tax agencies. It also syncs with QuickBooks Online. Feedback. Using the Feedback Master, you can create, edit, and delete the feedback forms. In Upvoit, you can choose whether you want to use the feedback feature or not. If you enable, then the admin can access this feature. When the job is completed, the client receives an email to give feedback on that job and give feedback using 5 stars for each form. Custom field. This is an interesting module, like every app offers. You can add your custom fields for each module, like request, quotes, jobs, and invoices. Then we have templates. Using templates, you can define services and parts. means you can create a package of services and parts. Then use those packages to create quotes, jobs, and invoices. So you don't need to select each item individually every time. Then shift. Here you can define your shift timings that help with scheduling, overtime calculations based on shift. Next, let's look at the checklist menu. Here, the admin can see a list of all the existing checklists. From this list, you can edit any checklist or delete the ones you no longer need. To create a new checklist, just click on Add Checklist. You can enter the checklist name and then start adding the individual checklist items. You can also rearrange the order of the items by simply dragging and dropping them into the sequence you want. There's also an option called Order Type. You can choose between random. Technicians can complete the checklist items in any order. Sequential. They must follow the checklist in the exact order you set. This helps you control how the checklist should be completed based on your workflow. That's how you can manage and customize your checklists inside the system. Next is Broadcast. From here, you can broadcast any message to technicians and your customers via email and in-app notifications. For technicians, you can select all or select specific technicians as well. For clients, you can send a message to all customers or a specific customer. Specifically, you can choose a start date and end date, and all customers that have scheduled jobs between that period will be sent an email notification. Meaning, let's say if you have heavy rain in the city or area, then you can inform all those clients of cancellation or rescheduling. The next one is a Holiday Master, where you can add, edit, and delete holidays that affect your schedule and payroll. Next, let's look at the Allowances menu. Here, the admin can see a list of all the allowances that have been added. From this list, you can edit any allowance or delete the ones you no longer need. To add a new allowance, click on the Add New button. Then enter the allowance name, the amount, and the frequency. For example, per job, per day, per week, per bi-week, per month. Or not sure. If you choose not sure, the allowance will not be added to payroll automatically. In that case, the user or admin will need to apply it manually whenever needed. Once an allowance is created, it can be assigned to a technician under their user profile. You can also change the frequency for each technician individually, so the same allowance can work differently for different people. This gives you full flexibility in how allowances are managed and applied in payroll.